what you're thinking. I bet you're never telling how it feels. I bet you never even try to be real. Cover it up, you have to play your own game. Cover it up, don't let them know what you're thinking. I bet you never telling how it feels. I bet you never even try to be real. Okay, I bet you never even try to be okay. I bet you never even try to be okay. I bet you never even try to be okay. I bet you never even try to be okay. I bet you never even try to be okay. I bet you never even try to be okay. I bet you never even try to be okay. I bet you never even try to be.
Hello everybody and welcome to Ben's Banter. I'm Ben and I'm joined here by one of my good friends, Felix Manhina.
Hey guys, how's it going? And thank you very much, Ben, for having me today.
No, thank you for joining me. Look, the topics we'll be discussing today are relatively topical. They've been in the media as of late, and they're also directly related to us, so you know our insights are important. So yeah, we'll just dive right into it. Probably the most recent thing is the old minimum wage has gone up to $17.70.
Yeah, I gotta say, because back when I first started working part time as well, that was yonks ago. So about 3 years ago, I remember it being steadily at $14.75.
Yeah, it was it was 14 or 15.50 or something.
Yeah, I remember so at $14.75 and moved up to $15.50. And then relatively late last year, I moved it to $16.75. So it's taken a huge $2 increase over the space.
Yeah, it's got up to $17.70 now. Yeah,
$17.70.
Yeah,
shit. So
yeah, my pay's gone.
It's taken this huge increase over the years, where it's like you've gone from something so small to all this taxation that's come through, especially with the new legislation that they increased with the fuel pricing. It's a big thing, especially targeting young people like ourselves. You know, you got a part-time job, you're trying to make a way, but necessarily you don't really need any money at our age. But I think it's the millennial effect that comes out of us when we demand money, so we're not getting treated equally, and then this is when we get that big pay rise coming through. So back from two, 3, 4 years ago, when it was at $14.75, and slowly, as you said, moving up each year. And they don't understand that tax also goes up at the same time. It's like a this issue.
Controversial opinion. I don't reckon it should have gone up. I reckon $16.60 was fine. I think they're starting to everyone wants more money. That's if I'm working, I want more money. That's the point. But you pick up the hour. If you're earning minimum wage, I'm generalising, of course, but you're most probably going to be a youth. One of your first jobs, you know, you pick up more hours. You just sort of got to slog it out for the first bit. I think people are expecting too much from their first job. You know what I mean? I think people expect to start working and just boom.
That's another great thing as well that you brought up there, because, for instance, we have like millennials, especially when they millennials. I'm using millennials a lot, but it's factual. Especially when they jump into a new career or like a new part-time job, and they get the sincerity from their parents, like they've been kind of like struggled up. You're precious. If it's too hard and the going gets too hard, then you don't really need to worry about it. You got us to fall back on. But at the same time, saying that, we can compare that to the work ethic of today. It's like a lot of students and kids that go into their first workplace expect so much out of it because they expect that it's going to be easy for them, they're going to be fine, and they're going to be getting that demand of that they're going to be looked after and taken care of. Well, realistically, it's like, nah, working is a lot more harder than you can anticipate, especially if you're in an industry such as hospitality, something that's extremely demanding.
Yeah. You and I are both McDonald's employees. You recently an
ex-McDonald's employee here.
Yeah. So, you work that out. Also...
I definitely know what you mean, though.
Yeah. Just sort of... I don't know, I feel... And also, something else I'd like to add, I'm going to use the term millennials a lot. It's just probably the most accurate term. But millennials taste in fashion and in
I know
first
exactly
vehicle.
What you mean.
It's so expensive. Like your street fashion, air quotes. Like it's so expensive. Like, let me have a quick look here. Oh, excuse me. At Supreme.
Supreme's a great example of one, overrated clothing for one, two, fashion statements, which I don't understand. A lot of teenagers these days trying to recreate their own fashion statements, identify themselves as a trend, try to make it big. And I know, especially, I'm not going to be naming names here, but there are quite a few people I know that have started a fashion trend and like started their own like fashion businesses, trying to make a name for themselves. But realistically, their actual clothing itself isn't that even good looking. It's what they identify as good.
Well, I mean, clothes that are good looking is objective. It's each to their own. But at the same time, you cannot tell me you can charge a purple shirt with a melted clock on one side and coming through on the other side for $180 US.
It's ridiculous. It's sincerely ridiculous. Yeah. And I gotta say, like, this shirt here I got from Helen Stein's for $40. Now, this is good quality. It's light material.
Sponsored by Kmart.
Sponsored by Kmart. And no, it's like, seriously, light material, all buttoned up, very nice, awesome pattern. I do love it. It's great for any occasion. And this only cost me $40. Where you go buy a t-shirt from Supreme or something like that, it's going to cost you $180, and it has like one simple design on it.
Yeah.
It's theoretically, it's the brand of the name that people are buying.
People are buying the name, and we could dive deep into that rabbit hole about people buying the name of things.
Exactly.
But but the same again. Plain white warehouse t-shirt.
Always. Robotism, sir.
Thank you.
But no, I do respect that what you just said. It's true. People are buying the names of clothing. They want to, especially kind of the way of teenagers nowadays. Again, it's reflecting on wanting to identify as a bigger picture. So, a lot of the school dropouts I know, they've all gone off, done fashion, right, but they want to assimilate themselves as an identity and kind of cut everything else out. So let's get high every day, let's get smashed every day. Yeah. Let's just wear wacky ass clothing and it looks disgusting. But again, I think that's another problem that we have with our generation. There's a lot of people that identify themselves and demanding respect in that kind of situation when really we can't offer that. And I think a big personally for me, I believe that if more generations were less affiliated within their rights, especially this generation itself, feministic rights, transgender equality, all this heterosexual stuff that's going on, and in people that are dropping out of school demanding like, okay, well, this is fashion, this is what I want.
But touching on that even further, the sort of demand for respect, I feel it can be touched into that as well. Like, it's just people want to be respected straight up. I'm having a shit time here.
Drink some more aqua, sir.
I will.
But no, respect. I do see what you mean. It's a virtue, if anything. People demand it without actually earning it in the first place.
Yeah, and I feel like that's the main point. Is the minimum wage goes up, and it's great, but at the same time, I think the people who are celebrating it are the people who are expecting too much too soon.
Exactly.
Yeah. Sort of build on that.
I think a big thing that people tend to pass as well, especially, I'm just going to go back on it because we talked about it earlier, but the fact of actually price increase itself. So when people ask for pay rises, we get these situations where the pay rate goes up. We tend to forget about the one thing of what's actually causing it. Where does that money come from? It doesn't come out of thin air. You think, so you got your franchisee or your boss or the businessman that does all your salary and your payroll. Like it's going to come out of his pocket, right? He's got a fixed salary rate. Whatever profit comes out from the businesses, he's going to take out of. And so once you're making money, it's a fact. You don't want to lose money, right? No. Imagine, for example, you were on $16.75 right now, and then that drops back down to $15.20. How are you going to feel?
Yeah, exactly.
It sucks. Same response for a businessman, right? Like, yeah, of course they're making heaps of money, but they've also got a family, they've got their rates they have to pay for, and businesses cost a lot, and a lot of people look over it and they don't actually see that. And you've taking out everything aside, so say for example you've got your utilities, your hot water, your power, your internet, everything you need for a business, right? Your payroll, your stocks, your GP. Once all that's gone, you as a franchisee are only left with a fixed sum. And majority of the time it's not that great, and it can vary a lot. And both my parents own 4 businesses, so it's like I can see from their perspective as well. Some businesses can do really great, other businesses and just do shit. And so when this new pay rate comes through and they have people demanding another $2.10 extra pay rise, to say that's not much. But realistically, you got a staff base of like around 150.
And your parents would be hiring relatively not particularly old people, so this
maybe generations, like I'm
would affect them.
And it's like, $2.10 extra, it's not that much of a thing, but then it's like, how many hours do you work
multiply that by 20 staff? And then so
multiply that by 20 staff, multiply that by 40 hours you work a week, and it's a shit ton. Like, it's a lot of money. And people think it just comes out thin air, but it really doesn't. And so if you really want to work for your pay rate, then you have to work harder yourself instead of just demanding it.
I agree with that. If you want to earn more money, you work more hours. You work around it.
Oh, definitely, most definitely. That's the fixed problem that we have in our generation, is that people don't really want to work for what they own. You know what I mean? Like they won't.
People want to own it now.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. All right. So we'll move on to the next point I've got here, which actually ties in quite nicely to what we've just been talking about, is house prices.
Housing prices.
I've got a little statistic here. The median house price in Hamilton now is median, your middle of the run, is $551,000.
Shit.
That's your middle of the run in Hamilton.
Alright.
Little known, we could touch base on the Auckland housing market at the moment as well. But just a bit of perspective on changing times. Take a guess. My grandmother grew up in Tamaranui, and she built her first home at around, I think she was between 18 and 20 with my grandfather. Built her first home in Tamaranui. Guess how much it cost to build a 3-bedroom home in Tamaranui?
These days you're looking...
No, when my nana grew up.
Oh, shit. I'm guessing around 600k.
600k in Tamaranui. Nah, way down, brother. Way down.
Oh, okay, maybe 450.
Try $9,000, my friend.
$9,000 to build a 3-bedroom house.
Try $9,000.
Nah, you are pulling my leg.
Nah,
no way.
I paid $1,000 for the land, $9,000 for the house, $10,000 first home. Boom, 18 to 20. You and I could not fathom owning a home. No.
These days, no. Sorry, my French. No, of course not.
$551,000 as opposed to $10,000.
I thought back then it would have cost a lot more, but no.
Well, we are talking about Tamaranui.
Yeah,
but still $9,000 for a home you would not get in New Zealand anywhere. I don't think you'd get.
Oh heck no!
No, you wouldn't even get close. I can't even think of somewhere where you'd get a 3-bedroom home for anywhere near that. And I think she said it was a like it wasn't like it was a firm-based one, like it was a Lockwood or a Golden Homes or something. It's like it was like
a genuinely good, decent home.
Yeah, like they went to a company and they got it built through them.
I'm astonished. You have to think what's happened in New Zealand within the last
I mean, it's around the world. It's around the world. The influx around the world is crazy. Crazy.
Definitely, and I gotta say, like, these days, if you're buying any housing unit that is your own, that you can say that you own, not rent, for 10k or 9k, 9 to 10k, that's like...
Yeah, well, I mean, in regards to renting, the neighbours next to us, we live in I'd say slightly upper middle sort of suburb. They tried to rent their house out for $600 a week.
600 a week?
Yeah. They didn't, of course, get that, but people are willing to put it out there because it's like, that's really expensive. But at the same time, it didn't seem, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It didn't seem, like, absurd, but it was still a lot. And now I think it went down significantly. But people are willing to put out that sort of price. It was only, I think it's only 3-bedroom. Like, it's not crazy good, crazy bad, but it's just...
It really astonishes me. So, again, we're having these issues that we're just talking about pay rates and in housing, for example. Any first home buyer these days, it's like you got to be working for a very long time. Like, maybe 20 odd years ago, you could see yourself buying and building your first house at like between your 20 and 30s, but the rate we're going at now,
I honestly, I wouldn't be upset. I wouldn't get my hopes up for owning my first home before 30. That's like a genuine thing. Like, I wouldn't be overly upset if I didn't own my first home before 30. Not because not that wouldn't upset me, because it kind of does. I'm not going to be able to own my own home by the time I'm late 20s. But it's a matter of like reality and practicality. I'm physically going to be unable to buy a first home by then, unless something happens. 551 grand.
Well, it's 551 grand to get your first home. Now that is a shit ton of money, and getting that without having a business for one. If you're not someone that's in a business, that's gonna take you a very extensive long time to like buy it in your first place. You might not. You might be like looking into your 40s, but then in that rate, but by the time you've almost bought it, you're gonna probably take out loans and end up in debt, and you'll be around your 50s, going into 60s, and you'll be wanting to think more about your life insurance and having to worry about your house.
Well, retirement and everything. You're telling me I gotta save every bit of money I own to buy my first home by 30, then pay that off, then try and get my retirement up and going. I mean, it's shit. Maybe the pay rise is a good thing, but you know what I mean. It's just
Oh, definitely. But again, we're going to fall into these issues, especially because a couple of years back, New Zealand were having issues with the fact of foreigners coming to New Zealand, purchasing homes.
Yeah, sort of the oversaturation of just home buyers in general.
Yeah, and then just not even living them, like buying them, going overseas again and just renting them out. Now, this is where I have a couple of problems with, because for one, we are significantly drowning our own our economy system for housing for New Zealanders. It's drowning them out, and it's pushing them out of the actual bubble that we need to be in the first place to buy our first homes. And then we've got other people that are coming in and like wanting to fully be like, okay, I need a house. I'm gonna buy some $10 million home on the coast of Auckland. So I mean, that's really nice. And we run into these issues, and so I feel sorry for anyone that's actually wanting to buy stuff and go into the housing property itself, become real estate, and you're dealing with these issues where people are buying houses and you can't even buy them because of ridiculous prices. It cuts all of us out of the game, especially in Auckland.
Yeah.
I just want to do a big shout out to in the live stream. Thank you to Sean Hub too for following Ben's Banter's live stream today.
Thank you.
And following us on the channel.
Also, shout out to my mum. She's been sending me texts the whole time.
Oh, thanks, Mum.
Yeah, thanks, Mum. She's been she's watching from probably on the couch somewhere at home.
Nice couch.
Yeah.
Hello, Ben's mum.
Yeah.
Hope you're going great.
Hey, Tash. Alright. We'll move on to something else that's relatively recent, I think. Actually, was it only last year? I think it was. First year free for tertiary education.
Yes. First off, I also say that was a amazing move by the Labour government.
I really think that was a fantastic thing, right? But, and I think you know what I'm gonna say. Why didn't they make it the last year free?
Okay.
For the rewards for the ones who have actually been working, because the issue is, you get a whole lot of people going, oh, we'll just try this out. First one's free. Sweet, we'll just do this. So you're not actually rewarding the ones who are wanting to study. You're not like granting anyone access into study. You know what I mean? It's just sort of like open the floodgates, let everyone in, and then the ones who are actually going to stay are out, and someone gets to use the resources for a free year when they didn't really want to be there.
That is an amazing point to bring up, because I was literally going to bring that up later on anyway. So, first things first, Labour government did an awesome job.
Yes,
rolling out that legislation.
Yeah.
I thought that was awesome. Taxpayer-wise, it hasn't made a huge increase on us, which is fine. I'm stoked with it. It's only been about an extra, I think it's around 35 to 50 cents out of each week's payroll. Completely fine. I'm done with that. But I think the big issue about this at the end of the day is that people who are actually purchasing books or whatnot, actually like spending a shit ton of money on actually focusing on their studies and wanting to actually go big with it, and then getting the first year's free, which is awesome, but at the end of the day, you got people that are coming through taking granted and advantage of this situation where we get the first year's free, and then just completely dropping out after that and going on to something else. I fully don't agree with that, and I reckon they should have implemented something in the first place to avoid that whole situation. And I see what you mean now, where we have the people that are actually staying with the course the whole way through, and if it was that last year's free, it would have been completely amazing, and I can see why. But to counter that, I do have a reason why it couldn't work. So myself and you, just straight out of high school, we're going straight into studying. If we go somewhere else, say for example, like if we go to AUT in Auckland, or we're going to Otago, then we have this kind of financial impact where we have to, 1, pay for our studies, 2, pay for our accommodation, and 3, having that pressure of a part-time job. And I think that gave a big edge off that situation for people that are like financially kind of struggling in that sense. So it allows them to also continue to increase and save money over the course of the free first year for the second year. And I find that was a good self-sufficient way of actually making it work.
I agree with that actually. That does make sense.
It's valid. It's very valid. But then again, I completely see where you come from, of people that do take advantage of it. Not a big fan of it.
Yeah. But no, that does work best for those who are like leaving home. Like, because I'm at Wintec, I'm at the Polytechnic, so I'm still at home. So I didn't actually have to leave anywhere. So to me, the first year free, I can see a lot of people abusing it. I think we have the same person in mind that we know of. But in regards to people leaving and going abroad, like if you're from Hamilton, you're going to AUT, or if you're going to Otago, I agree. I think that in that respect, it's a fantastic way to give students the opportunity to sort of get grounded, not worry about a certain element when they're first starting their studies. So I do see the benefit in that.
And again, I think there's a lot of times in life where we do get situations where it becomes harder for students. And don't get me wrong, the pressure and the intensity of your studies, especially students that are away from home, I find it a lot harder to actually continue to study and make a career out of it too at the same time. So fending for yourselves, you can like live with your parents, they can give you money, but you also need that money if you're going out on the weekend, if you're you just want to live with 2-minute noodles while you're studying that whole time, and that sucks. And you hear a lot of stories about that as well. Students that really tend to struggle, but in the long run though, they tend to make it a lot better than what other people do. And I think anyone in the chat today, because this topic is actually like picking off now and it's getting quite big. So anyone in the chat right now, please let us know your opinions of your first year's free. What you find the best thing about it. If you're against it or you agree with it, please let myself and B know what you guys believe is the best thing that the First Years Free is offering.
Also, if you've got any topics you want us to discuss, feel free to chuck them in too, and we can pick those up in a minute.
Most definitely.
Yeah. How many viewers have we got?
So currently we've got 6 on Facebook. Kia ora, Joseph Gita. Thank you very much for joining.
Joseph Gita.
And we have 5 on Twitch, and
nice.
we have 2 on YouTube. So thank you very much, guys, for tuning in.
Cool. Thanks very much. Right, so we'll move along to something that's very relevant recently, and that's the gun reform in New Zealand. I'm not going to go into, because I think everybody knows what this is about. I don't really want to mention it, but the gun reform in New Zealand, you know what, something that's really surprised me about this? The people who are resisting it.
Yes.
The Gun City owner, who the owner of Gun City, the company, he, like, what? Hello? Are you a human being? Like, we've got here, Chris Corhall, who's the New Zealand Police from the New Zealand Police Association. He was like, yep, look at all these people. I think 74 Uzi automatic assault weapons, basically, were handed in, which is fantastic. People are responding to what's happened. But he's come up and said that he doesn't think that how dare they get rid of all these guns so quickly, like people should have a chance to say something. I think the fact that 74 people send in their assault weapons, in addition to, what's this number here? Thousands of submissions bringing back their weapons, handing them into police. I think that's response enough to me. I really do. I think that's more than enough for people to say, yeah, we don't need this in our country.
Yeah. I'm very mixed with this this decision they've made.
Mm-hmm.
To be honest, I'm all for guns personally.
Mm-hmm.
But in a sentimental reason when I say that though, is like, for one, people that use it for game, for people that use it for sport.
Mm-hmm.
But then we get this cluster of people that do use it for bad, and which makes a bad influence on other people that actually generically use it for other things. So one of our greatest marksmen in New Zealand, I can't remember his name, but he's one of the best in the world in the Olympics for semi-automatic rifles and shooting for he got an Olympic gold medal at the last Olympic Games in London. No, was it London? Somewhere.
But the last Olympics.
Yeah.
That's stupid.
The next Olympics is next year. Okay, anyway, back to the point though. So he would have to completely jump ship and move country. So he might have to go to Australia.
It was in Rio. It's the Rio Olympics.
The Rio Olympics
in 2016.
So he because of this legislation that's actually came through and the complete change in law of guns, he has to now jump ship. He has to go to another country and... Wow, really? Yeah, because shooting was his full-time profession. He was training constantly. He was sponsored by all these people. But now that's been completely cut off because of the new law saying that you can't have semi-automatic firearms anymore. And so this has screwed him over well and truly, because that was his life, that was his business, that was his passion, and it was his career. But again, we get this handful of people that use it for bad. And I think the media as well is a huge influencer when it comes to explaining what guns are. So like you tell a person, if I said to you, what's the first thing that comes to mind when I say a gun?
Shooting. Exactly.
So shooting what though at the same time?
Game to me.
A shooting game.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So what's one of the biggest shooting games in the world?
Your venison and your that, but we talking sort of archery style shooting. What are we doing?
Okay.
What are we talking about?
Forget that point. That was kind of irrelevant. But the point I was trying to get to though was that a majority of the time when you talk about a gun to someone, you think of violence. You think
of course.
Danger. It's literally a weapon of mass destruction at the same time. It's the primary thing that they use during war. And so when you talk about a gun, people think about war, deaths, and it paints this image in your mind, and especially after the Christchurch shooting as well. At the same time, we had these issues where people with all their guns out, like going around rampaging, all these things. You never thought that would ever happen in Christchurch ever, especially New Zealand alone. Anywhere in the world, you don't want it to happen, but somewhere like New Zealand, where this is completely uncommon, and it happened to us, and we're completely defenceless, it's causing people to go absolutely delusional about it. Like, oh, crap, we need to start banning guns now. We need to start putting in new bylaws against purchasing firearms, and they start going absolutely over the moon about it. Now, fair enough that they changed it, because it had been changed since 1973.
Yeah.
But at the same time, if they had more regulation on it, if they were actually following up on gun registrations and how they were being purchased and implemented around New Zealand, we would have never ran into this issue in the first place. So just as much as the shooter is at fault, I have to say New Zealand government was also a majority factor for not updating any of their rules nor their regulations since 1973.
Yeah, and I agree with that. And I think actually thinking about that and thinking on the points that you've made, I think because in regards to the guy who's had to jump ship to go and do his profession, you know, like I think they could have spent a little bit more time with, because hey, when it came out, I was like, yes, all for it, get rid of them, done. But that actually gave me a perspective, because now this guy has to leave, and now we won't have a New Zealand representative at those events.
Yeah, that's true.
Don't have that. So maybe they should have spent a little bit more time on that sort of thing. Maybe certain places can have them, and they belong to the, or you leave your one there, and it stays at the range or wherever they go to do that sort of shooting, and it stays there. A little bit more legislation around it, a little bit more rules. That probably would have been a better way to go. But banning them all together, I can see how that sort of damaged some people's livelihoods, because that's his job.
Exactly. And that's another thing as well. We're going to use gun city and hunting and fishing, one of the two biggest leading firearms factors in New Zealand. Most of their trades are semi-automatic rifles as well, because it's one of the best firearms to use, especially during game. Winter coming up, duck hunting season, especially mid-season boar hunting and venison. That's going to be major for the shooting community, and it's going to be a massive time for the industries such as hunting and fishing and gun city. But because they're removing one of their biggest products away from their store, it's going to make a financial impact on these businesses too. And we were just talking about pay rates and housing crisis before, and so if we take something major like a firearm that's such a big thing in the hunting community in New Zealand, you're also affecting the businesses as well. You're affecting their employees getting paid. People are stopped on purchasing such firearms like that, and they can't get them into New Zealand anymore as well. So this is when we have issues where, because of the firearms are now illegal, and that they've been banned, people are going to start resorting to black market stuff. People that haven't actually returned in their semi-automatic rifles before they become illegal, and if they get caught with them, they're going to get faced with a hefty fine, possibly enjailment, depending on how many they've actually got. And it's a system here where we need to actually identify, was it that necessary that we should have banned it because of one person's actions? So I think, especially Jacinda, we moved too fast. We jumped to conclusions too fast. We're like, okay, we're going to ban weapons straight away. We're just not going to sell them whatsoever, or semi-automatic rifles completely gone. When we could have approached that situation completely different and been like, okay, we just need more rules and legislations and regulations around the purchase of firearms, especially online. The registrations of firearms, making sure they're legally were there to be used on the field within safety reasons. People getting their firearms license reevaluated, seeing if they are competent and capable of withstanding and holding a firearm of such power in the position. And are they safe? Are they locked away to a secure manner where it's not going to harm anybody else, or nobody can actually breach it and get access to them? It's all these little things that we could have actually implemented better to make sure that we didn't run into the situation in the first place. And now, because that we've banned firearms in general now in that section, who says that shotguns aren't going to be next? Who says that pistols aren't going to be next? Who says that firearms are going to all involuntarily be banned in New Zealand?
Yeah, and that's a good point. I mean, where can you draw the line on some things? I mean, you know, it'll get to a point where it all just sort of snowballs together. But I really do think that the semi-automatics will be the last of the gun reforms for a while. I think slowly they'll start to put more regulations in place on everything.
Yeah.
But I don't think they're going to get rid of anything again.
No. I'd hate to see something go. That's for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's probably another problem I say that's going to be an effect around New Zealand, is that if we do run into situations like this again, and who says it's not going to happen again? Last time this actually happened was back in the 1993 and the mass shooting, and
that's right. How many?
There was only 6 people that died in that one, and it was just some crazy delusional guy that went on his rampage, killed his family, and yeah. So something to an extent of a whole community getting involved in it. So how many shooters were involved? Like 4 shooters involved.
I can't.
Was it 3 or 4?
A lot of.
There's been a lot of mixed messages.
Yeah, sure. I know the one main scumbag. I know that, but then there were other people as well. Yeah,
and I haven't really bothered to name the others because it was the one guy that did the most damage. But personally, I believe that because of that situation, because it's been 50 people that died, and New Zealand's never faced anything like that before, to such a high extent. What's next? What's going to be the next big thing that's going to rock New Zealand, firearms-wise, mass killing-wise, terrorism-wise? Who knows? But every time something like this happens, I think we tend to jump to conclusions a lot. We overreact, and we tend to focus on the now and forget about how we can prevent this in the future.
I feel like now, because it never happened before, we never had a perspective of what that's like.
Definitely not.
So I think now is the time where things will start to happen. But yeah.
Valid points. Very valid points.
Yeah. All right. Moving on to something a little lighter.
Got very heated.
I'm just sort of scrolling through some news sources here, and I'll just sort of touch on a few things. Let's have a rant section, shall we?
A rant section.
Just a general rant section.
Quick fire rant section. I like it.
Let's bold this one in big bold letters. Winston Peters.
Oh
my God, Winnie, what are you doing to me, bro?
Okay, hands down right now, I'm going to say one thing about him and one thing only. I don't like the guy. I don't like the guy's political values. I don't like what he's doing with those political values. I think he just needs to leave government. He's too old. He's never going to get into...
He fell asleep at a conference.
I know.
You see that? He fell asleep at a conference. Hold on, let me have a quick read of this. Oh no, don't play the video. That's copyrighted. Yeah, he fell asleep at the top level political conference in Turkey. What a spanner. Like, God.
So when you don't fall asleep at a multi-political somewhere where there's like politicians from all around the world, you're giving New Zealand a bad name and a bad face in an instance. I agree with that. Next thing, I reckon he just needs to go. He's too old. His views are becoming so much...
Not that age is anything to discriminate against, but come on, Winnie, you made the gold card. You've done New Zealand well, but off you go. Like, come on. Like,
I think we have issues. This is what I can get seriously heated about this, but I won't. We get our generation. It happens every single generation. Trust me, it does. Baby boomers hate millennials. That's a fact.
Yeah, baby boomers aren't a big fan, are they?
They have a lot of views.
Baby boomers, God, we could get into that, but anyway.
They have a lot of views on the world that, to this day, can't comprehend like their cycle. No. So they complain. So first off, they complain about pricing. They complain about rules that are in place.
They complain about
They complain about everything because it's not what they were used to back in the day. But they have to focus and like listen up that times change. Yeah. That happened to them. That happened to their parents. That happened to their grandparents.
Yep.
There's a lot of things that change, and they need to actually understand that. And I think, especially with today's modern age, a lot of young people aren't getting to where they are. Especially like really, really good people that actually know what they're on about. We did talk a lot about the millennials and how shit they are.
Yeah.
But there's a handful of us that really do have their heads screwed on correctly. They are going to make awesome changes in the world. And I personally believe that those people, a lot of the older people don't like, and they don't want to see them coming through into like big leadership situations. But then again, those older people are holding everything they had during their time.
Yeah.
They're not focusing from a younger perspective. Yeah. They're not understanding how our youth kind of rotates around in political standbys, and they need to identify that we have a say, and they aren't willing to let us say anything because they're too focused on their prejudiced views.
Yeah, and I'll just throw it out there for the sake of perspective. We're not talking about all old people.
No, not all old people.
We're just talking about.
I love you, Grandma. I love you, Granddad. Okay.
But we are talking about, and I will straight to the point. We are talking about those people who refuse to change their views, refuse to listen to other people, and refuse to give young people who have the exact same right as you do to have a perspective. Yeah, we're coming at you. Like, we are addressing you directly. Like, you know what I mean? We are talking to you. Because there are a lot of them out there that have a lot of strong opinions, and they will ask for your opinion, yet when you give it, they won't take it into account.
Great say, Ben. Great say. I love it.
You know what I mean?
And that is a huge formal
just
factor.
Coming out here attacking baby boomers, like, come at me.
That is a huge formal factor, though. That is true.
Yeah.
And I hate saying this, but honestly, like, wrap them up and almost chuck them in the casket at the same time. I hate saying that, but there are a lot of them that complain, that bitch, they moan, they won't shut the front door up, and they demand, they complain about everything, and especially in hospitality, like, running into those people, it's like, shit, you're extremely frail. Good on you for getting out. Good on you. You're an absolute badass. You know exactly what you're talking about. I respect you for it, but at the same time, you're really digging my head in. So can you just not? And that was really ruthless.
So it's coming out swinging to old people.
I am like.
Then I say old people. I'm just talking about the ones who refuse.
Yeah, it's not all of them. It's not all of them. It's only a handful, and it's
it really is only a handful. Not even majority. I would even go
for sure.
As saying just
it's a handful of people these days that really affects the world. And it doesn't matter what generation, what age, what nationality, what race you are, there's always a handful of people that are always going to implement the world in a negative way. And I think this is where I really shut my mouth here because it's a true fact. But
be careful.
It's the best opinion is always your opinion, so keep it to yourself and don't tell anyone else. I think that's a very strong saying that you can go by, but. That's why I don't really like talking about my opinion when it comes to things, because it's like people are going to be inseparable and going to be extremely self-sufficient and
people are going to they're going to counter your arguments with their thoughts. It's just
it's plain. It's always going to happen, and it's you're never going to ever land on a conclusion, and you're always going to argue about it. So when people say, "Oh, yeah, my opinion's the best," it's like, well, majority of the time it is. But in your opinion, it's your opinion. So keep it to yourself.
Yeah,
and
I agree.
You have to kind of take that one on the chin.
Yeah, and there's always a time and a place to voice an opinion.
Oh yes,
there always is. Definitely. But it gets to a point when it's like, now is not the best time to make that lady. I'm literally taking your order at McDonald's. You don't have to tell me your opinion about the prices that I don't make.
Coffee used to make 25 sheets.
A frozen Coke has gone up an extra $1.
Oh shit! What a world, right?
Yeah, what a world. Have we got anything on the chat that we?
No, nobody's actually really said anything about opinions to bring up.
Okay.
But Joseph does really like your denim jacket. I really love the denim jacket, Ben.
It's a Hallenstein's jacket. I got it when it first came out, and then everyone copied me. So, trendsetter here.
And we talked about it when we first said that. So to kind of recap, guys, and everybody else in the chat, what we've been talking about today, we first started the topic about the millennial of fashion trends.
And minimum wage, really.
And minimum wage was
prices of things coming up. And then that's sort of stemmed into house prices. Your average house price is about 550k. We're capping just over $500,000. Perspective, my grandmother built a house from buying the land to a finished 3-bedroom home when she was between 18 and 20 for 10 grand. That's half my car. That's half my car. Renting prices are insane. First year free, we discussed whether that was a good idea or not. We sort of settled on a middle ground. There were positives and negatives.
Yeah. Gun
reforms had to happen, but could have been done a little differently. And then, sort of stemmed into other things. Is there anything else you sort of wanted to discuss?
Not really. No, we've touched up on quite a few things today. I'm quite thankful for like some of the stuff we've said.
Yeah,
and it's been really good. And personally, I believe that one of the biggest things I say is that if we actually talk about this type of stuff and we really acknowledge and sympathise in the fact of like these things are quite common issues, then we should start realising them more often.
Mm-hmm.
And people are going to have issues with them in the world. People are going to not like what you talk about, and some of the factors and political standbys like pricing of fuel or like housing prices that continue to go up. People are always going to have problems with those. But if you really express your voice, you talk about these things with family or friends, and you really justify the point you're trying to make, then you're going to see awesome outcomes with it, and people will actually start focusing on like what the serious issues are.
I feel like these things, like, they have to be talked about. You can't sort of leave them up to the government to sort out.
Of course not.
You've got to bring them up. You've got to voice your opinion.
You always do, and that's the thing. But
I think it's good to talk about. I think this was a great sort of intro into, I don't know, maybe a series of podcasts we could start doing.
I
think that'd be kind of cool.
It'll be great.
Aim to do
Ben's Banter on the
something.
Of the weekly.
We'll name it something.
Well,
all right.
Anyway, guys, thank you very much for tuning into today's podcast of Ben's Banter. Thank you very much for running this running the thing today for me. It's been awesome.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me on your live stream. Thank you all for tuning in. And I'm sure that we'll be back again at some point to discuss probably another wide range of
we're always going to be back. That's for
always going to be back. Thank you very much, everybody. And
we'll see you later.
We'll see you next.